participatory budgeting, also sometimes called community budgeting. And historically, this concept of community budgeting or participatory budgeting started in Brazil over 35 years ago. And it was a response to corruption. It promised greater transparency, greater citizen involvement. It took a while, but it spread internationally. Certain structural things about the financial decision making and the budget decision making has changed, but the conception of the government's role did not change. And so really what participatory budgeting winds up being is just another mechanism for identifying activities to fund. Hello and welcome to the MuniFinanceGuy podcast. I'm Mark Moses, MuniFinanceGuy. Today I want to look at a new trend. It's actually been brewing for quite some time: participatory budgeting, also sometimes called community budgeting. Historically, this concept of community budgeting or participatory budgeting started in Brazil over 35 years ago. And it was a response to corruption. It promised greater transparency, greater citizen involvement. It took a while, but it spread internationally. Chicago in 2009 became the first U.S. city to embrace the concept. And the way it basically works, and there's no one single cookie cutter format for how it works, but residents can propose ideas. They can develop projects to basically present to the council for funding. And so the city council sometimes is the one who will decide which projects go through. Other times there may be a community vote where it actually goes out to the public for a vote. It's whatever specific form it takes. Sometimes there's just a committee, an appointed committee by the council to represent the residents with respect to participatory budgeting. So, but whatever form it takes, that the basic concept is get more people involved, hear from people that may not normally have a voice. And so in California and Marin County, they just went through their second round of participatory budgeting, where the public now can decide how an additional $2.5 million in public money will be spent. Vallejo, of all places, which was following its bankruptcy, issued a tax measure to help support the city financially after the tax measure, and 30% of that revenue is dedicated to participatory budgeting. And they used the steering committee approach with a 21-member steering committee. What's really changed here? And I would argue certain structural things about the financial decision making and the budget decision making has changed, but the conception of the government's role did not change. And so really what participatory budgeting winds up being is just another mechanism for identifying activities to fund. And so, and if you've heard me talk in other contexts, when a city's mission is unbounded, when it's so vague that really anything goes, anything can be a legitimate spending source, when you open up more avenues to spending, then you're just going to have more, you're going to feed the expansion, and you're going to exacerbate what is already systemic scope creep. And some may argue that, well, that's not the way it works in our city. Council just gives the committee or the group a list of projects that are already in the pipeline, and they just help prioritize it. Well, that's really just going through the motions. That's not really an effective participation. That's really just helping council sort out, when they have limited funds or limited capacity for street projects, which ones get done first. It doesn't change the overall picture of what needs to be spent, what needs to be done to support the street infrastructure. So now, even though council retains the legal authority and has final say over what the group or the vote may indicate as the community's preference, once it takes on this life, once it's stamped positively by the committee or by a vote, it becomes politically harder to reject. And so, really, in a certain sense, we create another special interest, another group that has a perspective on how city funds should be spent that is now not just coming to council and speaking in open session to support that effort, but now they really have an official place at the table. So the fundamental problem isn't participatory budgeting as such. It's that we've jumped ahead. We continue to run our cities without any formal concept, any tight concept of what the organization is for, what should it be doing. So when you describe your purpose, and this is what happens, whether it's in Marin County or in Vallejo or anywhere these days, when your purpose is to improve quality of life or sustainability or equity, then you're not going to be able to say no to anything. There's no principled basis for deciding what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And so participatory budgeting doesn't do anything to solve that problem. In fact, it really operationalizes the problem and just extends it. So budgeting cannot determine government's purpose. Government's purpose determines the budget. And if you've heard my other podcasts, I'm an advocate for you need a rights-based and individual rights-based approach to scoping municipal government because that's the only way to keep the local government being the means to the ends, the flourishing of the residents and business owners, rather than what we have now, which is the municipalities, their goals have taken on a life of their own. They just keep inviting more people to the party to determine how to spend the money, and then the residents and business owners through their taxes become a means to that ends. So the next time you hear your council or somebody talking about participatory budgeting, you don't really, the place to start is not who gets to decide how the public money is spent. You really need to start in a different place. What are they not allowed to spend it on? And if there's no principled answer, then the real issue is at that point is not budgeting. It's that the organization has no bounds. It has no boundary. And no budgeting reform is going to solve that problem. So that wraps up today's episode of Muni Finance Guy. Please follow me on Substack, and I'll see you next time.